But then she ruined it. Took away all of his best material and made him just do nothing but stupid puns. He was freaking hilarious. You did this to him. He'll never be the same. Don't complain about them. Celebrate what he has left.
Show you, man.
Bottom.
What am I doing? Wires. Testing one.
Testing one.
Check,
Talk
check.
really low like this.
Yeah. Check, check, check.
We do have to hold it. There you go.
Check, check, check.
Look at that blocker. If you set that down, it's not going to smack the table. It's not going to make crazy noises.
That's pretty neat.
It is perfect.
Yeah, I love it.
All right.
Ribbed for her protection. I'm sorry. You're trying to steer. I'm gonna stop staying. Stop.
She didn't have a shame.
Cool.
She's
Neither
playing,
did this guy. He didn't laugh. These guys got it.
she's playing with this.
All right. A little punchy after 10 hours.
So, the original name for this panel was Talking Zombies. Okay, that's kind of what we're going for, is a zombie creepy theme. But when I was walking around yesterday, Bill Perry overheard the conversation. He's like, I want to be in on this. And I know of Bill because I follow his social media. We have a mutual friend. We'll get to that in a moment. And I was like, hell yeah, come on down.
I was a zombie.
Exactly.
I was multiple zombies.
And then we have Marty. And-
Who's OG zombie.
Exactly. Who has
Actually-
worked with the king
Yes.
of zombies,
George Romero. Yeah.
George Romero.
Yeah.
So we're going to
I
have a
believe his middle name is
conversation.
Freaking.
Freaking Romero. We're going to have a conversation here. Shoot the shit. Try not to interrupt each other. If you interrupt me twice already, there's
It's
a
okay.
counter.
It's okay.
Sorry.
And no, it was me. You're fine. We are live at Ohio TerraCon. It is the first Ohio TerraCon. It is in Strongsville, Ohio, right outside of Cleveland, Ohio. We'll be back next year in Westlake, Ohio. We're live on Josh's Border Corner on YouTube and on Facebook. And we're gonna chat.
That's great.
Damn right.
All right, that was an all right intro.
That was
pretty
great.
good.
I love it.
So let's just jump right into it. George Romero.
Yeah.
How did you first meet him? How did it happen? You're a Pittsburgh boy, right?
Yes, I am. Well, I was a theater major at Point Park College. It's now Point Park University. And I always wanted to get into film, but back in the day, you didn't have film schools like you do now. So you did the next best thing, which was theater. And George was doing Dawn of the Dead. And they came to my acting class and said, we need someone to be a zombie, get hit by a truck, and be paid $25. So I said, I'm your guy. Hit me with the truck. So I went out and did one scene with Tom Savini where Tom actually gets hit by the truck. I catch him. I'm Tom Savini's stunt man. And that sort of started a lifelong friendship with Tom and I. But George said, hey, that was great, man. You want to come to the Monroeville Mall tomorrow night, get hit by a sledgehammer and thrown into a garbage can? And I said, do I get another $25? He said, yeah. I said, I'm in. So I went, I did another stunt zombie bit. And that was the night that the bikers were in the mall the first time. And they needed some people that were actors to round out the gang, the bike gang. I happened to be at the right place at the right time. I became a biker. And so I
If you can see him, you know he's a biker.
Yeah. So I actually hold the George Romero Triple Crown. I was a zombie. I killed a zombie, and I was killed by a zombie, all in Dawn of the Dead. So that was it. Yeah, that's how it got started.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very impressive. And Bill, tell us about your zombie history.
My zombie history, we did Return of the Living Dead Part 2 because so many unanswered questions from one. And so they called me up. There's a kid on the show, a kid named Thor Then Lingwin, or something of that nature. Thor is his name. And he's about my height, about my weight. And they said, can you be a zombie? And I was working another show at the time, and I thought, oh my gosh, zombie movies is the best. Because when you're a zombie and if you're a stunt person, when you do a stunt, if your character is run over by a car, well, thanks for coming in. You're done. But because he's a zombie, he's already dead. So we can just keep running him over. We can light him on fire. We can electrocute him. We can throw him off buildings. He's just going to keep coming back like the Energizer Bunny that eats flesh. And so they said that, and then they said, once you're done with this, we need a utility zombie. There's actually a thing in the credits, utility zombies. And I want to get a shirt with that now. And they said, yeah, you're going to be just one of the zombies. And I don't know about you, but when somebody's talking about doing the like special effects makeup, if you're Robert Englund, you have to wear that makeup every day, and it's 8 hours a day in the chair, no fun. But if it's just one day or just a week or so, it's really cool. People make you up, and these are really good people. I mean, you're talking Tom Savini. My gosh. So I just thought this was going to be the greatest thing. And I was literally working all day on one show and all night on the other. And somebody said, "How did you sleep?" I said, "I know. I was so excited I couldn't." It was just the best thing ever. I thought it was a really fun movie, very, very cool cast of people. And it was just fun. I mean, I couldn't sleep because I was so excited about what I got to do tonight after what I got to do today. That was just the dream of everybody that wanted to be in movies, was to be so in demand that you could do more than one at a time. And so, yeah, I got stabbed in the mouth with a screwdriver. I got electrocuted. I got run over by a meat truck, specifically a meat truck. I don't want to just make like it was any truck. It was a meat truck. And I got thrown off a catwalk. I had to do a pretty decent high fall. So, yeah, it was really, oh, and then electrocuted with all the other zombies because that's how they decided to kill them in that one. So, yeah, just really, it's probably my most fun I've ever had on a movie, just because every day was something different. You didn't know what you were going to do. They just say, be in here, be ready to bring your pads and just be ready for whatever we have today.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. You don't get to plan. You don't get to worry about it. You just go and do whatever the fun stuff is that day. That's pretty cool.
And I don't want to assume that you only did it for $25.
I did.
Were you drawn to horror from an early age? Like, was that something that horror was always a thing for you, or it just kind of worked out?
It kind of just worked out. But I will say that when I was 10 or 11, my mother took me to see a movie about her mother, and it was about a mother and a child, and it turned out to be Rosemary's Baby. And so my mother, my mom was like, she said, "You were totally locked in on the screen. I didn't want to take you away from it because you were enjoying it." And I said, "Well, that says a lot because," and I did like the old Universal classics. We had a Saturday night show in Pittsburgh called Chiller Theater with Bill Cardille.
Yeah.
And Laurie Cardille, his daughter, is the lead in Day of the Dead. But Bill Cardille did Chiller Theater, and they showed the old Mario Bava movies, and they showed all the Universal classics, Frankenstein, Dracula, The Wolfman. And my parents would let me stay up and watch those. So I definitely had some influence. But if they were doing a comedy or if they were doing anything and I had an opportunity to be in it, I would have taken that shot. It just happened to be Dawn of the Dead. And it set the foundation for my career. I'm still doing horror movies, 6 decades later.
Yeah.
Bill and I figured out that I've been doing this for 6 decades, which kind of blew my mind.
We were
Because-
trying to math earlier. He needed you guys like an hour ago. We were trying to figure out the math.
Yeah. We can do the math.
All right.
Yeah.
Next time.
Simple math, no algebra.
And Bill, you have a huge list of credits, right? You've been across, but it seems like sci-fi and horror are kind of your main cup of tea. Is that fair to say?
It's fair. I mean, it's funny. People have asked me the same question. What made you want to get into horror? And at the time, this is the '80s. I'm 5'6". I'm kind of thin, kind of short, way thinner then. I was like 120 pounds, and so I had the physique of a 14-year-old girl, and so or young boy. And I was one of the few guys that had that. And that was when they were making horror films, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4 and 6 and Return of the Living Dead and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And they all had, the teen market had just really exploded as far as films go. And so that was what was out there. And ashamed to say, I really didn't tell anybody I did horror films because I just kind of thought they were going to be the Kleenex of our generation's, cinema. And I thought nobody's ever going to remember these things. They're just going to be tossed away. Nobody's going to care. And then here we are, 30, 40 years later, and it's what people do remember. And there's this humongous community around it. And people really love these films. I've heard the most wonderful stories at this show from people who said, these movies were my go-to when I was stressed out or when I was just trying to deal with something going on, I could just watch these movies and live vicariously through their adventure and not be in physical danger, but be able to have the sort of relief and watch them survive. And then I knew I could make it too. And so when they're all very poetic, I just took the jobs that were there. It was what was there. I mean, I did some, Home Alone stuff, and Star Trek, and the Wonder Years. There's no stuff on the Wonder Years. That's the first thing everyone says. A lot of TV stuff, which wasn't horror, but the horror movies are the thing now that I kind of look back on and go, that was fun. Special effects stuff, the zombie stuff is something you kind of look back on and you can get a good laugh out of it because it's kind of slow to make these things. And when you watch them in the film, you get to see it the way, the director and everybody else imagined it in the time. It was like, God, I've been in this chair for you. It gets you there at 6, you're ready by 8, you film at 4 in the afternoon. If they get to you at all.
Yeah.
So there's so much waiting around. So the making of them isn't as exciting as you'd hope, but the watching of them, and watching it up with an audience and seeing them react to it is rock and roll. It's just the best. Makes you feel like $1 million.
Yeah. And so he mentioned that he wasn't sure if horror was going to blow up and be this big thing. Did you feel the same way? Like you didn't know horror was going to have a huge future?
I was so young in the business of movies, of show business. So that when I did Dawn of the Dead, I had no clue how anything worked. I really didn't, and no, I did not think anything about the future other than I knew that it was my first step towards the career that I really wanted. And it was because I worked with George 5 more times. I did Creepshow, Night Riders, and then wrote a movie with George. And then I produced both of George Romero's Dead Time stories. I produced both of those. So I got to work with George quite a bit. And it all started with me being willing to get hit by a truck for $25, right? So,
Like most good stories.
yes, of course. It all
Yes.
starts that way.
Wait, and my wife too.
Exactly. That's how I met your wife. So the reality of it is that I knew that it was going to take me where I wanted to go, but I didn't know it would leave me in horror for all these years.
Yeah.
Which is fine because I love it. And I love our fans. I love the work. And they're a lot of fun. It's a more forgiving form of film in a way.
Very, very, yeah.
And so it's really kind of neat. And, I just produced a film called Pig Hill last year, which will be out next spring. And I'm on board to do 3 more horror films over the next 2 years. So still working in it after all these years. Yeah. Had no idea when I started, to answer your question.
So I mentioned a mutual friend. I'm going to name drop him, and we're going to see his reaction. So watch his face. Alan Rock Robinson.
Oh yeah.
Alan is a great guy, and I met him a while back, a year ago, I would say, at Schiller Theater in Parsippany, New Jersey. We were out there with him, and he spoke so highly of you, talking about everything you've done.
He doesn't remember much.
So there's friendships that evolve through this. It's not just a job. Like you're on set, you're making relationships, you're making friends. You're still friends with Tom Savini.
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
So what kind of family kind of vibes, or what do you really take from these sets?
Well, for me, Romero had a family environment. George was a very loving, caring, supportive guy, and his sets were always fun. And he used the same people over and over and over again. If you look at Dawn of the Dead and then look at the cast of Night Riders, it's almost the exact same cast. And then you look at Creepshow, which was the next film. There's a bunch of us that were in Night Riders that are in Creepshow. Ed Harris, Tom Savini, Marty Schiff, Galen Ross, over and over again. George sort of, he fostered that relationship. And that was really what it was all about. And so Tom Savini and I see each other every week. I still talk to David Crawford and so many people from Dawn of the Dead. We still stay in touch. And of course, there's a big convention every year that celebrates Dawn of the Dead. And I do it every year because it's like a big family reunion for me. So I just think that the nature of George's sets were a family environment, and it sort of fostered those relationships.
I would say for myself, the stunt community is probably the people who work all the time are probably, at least at that time, there was maybe 200 guys. Now there's, I think they said there's something like 300,000 people in the Screen Actors Guild, and the stunt people are part of that. Only 5% of those people in that union will ever work, not one day. So 5%. So the people who did stunts tended to know one another because you'd hire each other when you had something, and you were constantly hustling, which is you go out, you put a picture and resume in the hands of the guy that might be running the next show that you're trying to get on. And if he looks at you, he seemed like a nice guy. And then he'll tell somebody else, yeah, if you need a kid, he seems like a cool guy. And so Alan actually was coming up around the same time I was, and we would all work out together, go to the gymnastics gym, go find an empty parking lot and learn how to do e-brake U's and roll cars, and do fire and all these things that you needed to learn how to do, and you wanted to learn from the other people that they knew things you didn't know, and so you would just work out together. And so the camaraderie of that is also sort of like a lifeboat. You're all doing this really challenging, very risky, and I don't mean risky in danger, I mean risky like, am I going to work? How am I going to pay my rent? Is this going to work at all? Is this even a career I should even be trying to get into? So you're all in this lifeboat, and you cling to one another because those people can either help you or they can throw you over the boat. And so I think the friends that I've made, Tony Caesar, who was Wes Craven's stunt coordinator for many, many years, almost all of his films, he and I had the same birthday. He gave me my first job. We became business partners on a project. And so you trust these people because when you do work with them, your safety is in their hands.
Right.
Tony taught me how to do fire burns, and fire burns is the most dangerous thing you can do. I mean, people die more doing that than any other kind of stunt. And so when Tony said, hey, I got a fire thing, I want you to do it, I'll show you how. I know I'm literally putting my life in his hands.
Yeah.
Or at least a really serious bad burn that would not be something they could prepare. So when you have those kind of people, and then also too, just the camaraderie of hey man, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it where other people don't. We're gonna get a career out of this where other people may only get one job. No man, I'm in for the long haul. We're doing this.
Absolutely.
And so that breeds a certain brotherhood or community that other things just don't do.
Yeah.
Because you have to be all in. And I think Marty will tell you too, when you want to be an actor, you want to be in this business, you have to give everything else up.
Is that true, Marty?
Yeah, it is. That's why we all have 6 or 7 marriages, because it's hard to be in a relationship and be committed to this career. It really is. And it's hard to find people that understand this relationship, not just relationships that are romantic, but friendships. A lot of times you'll lose friends because you've got to go work on a movie for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever. It's very demanding. And so we do kind of stick together because we understand where other people do not. Yeah.
So as far as the filming and the set times, what's the longest you had to give up your life to be on set?
For me, it was probably Night Riders. And the reason it wasn't because of the shoot schedule per se, but it was because the movie was 70% exterior and the weather just did not cooperate.
Yeah.
And we had a tornado destroy the set one day. And, it just took so long because we got rained out for a week, and we had taken over a Ramada Inn in Western Pennsylvania. And there should be a movie made about that, behind the scenes of Night Riders. That was the longest I was on a set, was because of the weather. It was Night Riders. Dawn of the Dead was actually split in 2. We shot in fall of '77. We broke for the holidays because the Monroeville Mall was decorated for Christmas.
Oh yeah.
So we couldn't shoot in there because of continuity. And so we had to take a break, and we went right back to work the second week of January. and finished the film in 78. So it seems like it took a long time.
It could have been a Christmas movie.
It could have been. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, there's a pie fight scene in Dawn of the Dead. And I throw the first and last pie, by the way. And in the pie fight scene, if you watch real close, you'll see Santa Claus running in the background. That's George Romero. George dressed as Santa Claus. If you watch, you just zoom ahead to the pie fight scene, and you'll look for Santa Claus. That's George Romero running through the scene as Santa.
Now, you said zoom ahead to that scene. I want you to know it doesn't work like that. You will not see it if you zoom ahead. You have to watch it start to that point. Otherwise, you will not see Santa Claus. You want to watch the entire movie here.
Yeah,
Some
well,
movies have Easter eggs.
There you go. You're going to find them all.
yeah, you should watch the whole movie. But if you don't have a lot of time, you could just.
All right, that's
But yeah, so but anyways, yeah, Dawn really only took 3 or 4 months to shoot, but it was split in 2. That was for me. What about for you, Bill?
I would say most of the time I was in for, I think the longest I ever worked on any show was about 2 weeks, because you come in, they have a person who's called your production designer, and they will look at the schedule. And these people have, big spongy heads and can schedule things and look at things and say, what sets do we have? Who's available? Who's going to be there? Costumes, locations. They have to look at this whole amalgam, and they shoot films out of sequence most times so that they can take the most advantage of, use you for the fewest amount of days so that they don't have to pay you as much. Makes sense? And so for myself, there was a lot of shows I'd just be on one day here, one day there, do my spot and then be done. But then every now and then you'd get a real nice run. And on one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, the kid that I was doubling, a kid named Sean Greenblatt, big kid, he's probably 55. But he was younger then, and he blew out his knee really bad on Newsies. And they said, well, the director watches the scenes, and he's like, I just watched Dailies yesterday. He's out running around like a beast. I said, no, that's the stunt guy. He said, use the stunt guy. He looks just like him. Nobody cares. And so I got extra time on the show, which was really cool because it was a really fun show to work on. And so I got this, sort of extended thing. And that for me was a huge deal. I mean, I know guys who were on films for 6 months, because they were there pre-show, post-show, reshoots, editing, that sort of stuff. But I never got that lucky. But it meant that I got to do more shows.
right.
Because a lot of guys would get, on a show for a while, but I was working a few times a month, which doesn't sound like much, but as a stunt person, that's Valhalla. That's the best anybody ever got. All my friends were so pissed at me. Like, you're only in this for a year. How do you have a series? Oh, the kid I was doubling was Will Wheaton. He had a 28-inch chest. Most people have a leg that's that, And so I was the only guy as skinny as him. So they just let me say, you then. Oh, thanks. What an honor. And just because I was skinny. They said, can you do a cartwheel? I said, can't he? And they said, no.
Nailed it.
Yeah. So a lot of the times, I did get a year on Star Trek, but then the kid grew 6 inches and I couldn't double him anymore. But that was really cool. And Wonder Years, another series where same kids, and they weren't growing as fast, thankfully. So I got a couple of years out of it.
And it's funny because if you read Will Wheaton's book, if I'm remembering this correctly, he talked about how when he hit that growth spurt, it kind of hurt him in the show too.
Yeah.
So he kind of hurt both of you.
Yeah, I was telling him, stay away from milk.
Yeah, man.
Don't you smoke? Don't you do,
Get some
drugs?
bad habits.
All the other guys had double drugs. That would slow you down. But I actually had to give it off to another guy who was literally 6 inches taller than me. It was like that kind of growth spurt, 6 inches in a year. I mean, I would imagine that destroys your knees and everything just to get so tall. But really cool kid and was very nice about it. No regrets. I just wish it could have been longer.
So, and again, the topic for the discussion was about zombies. We've hinted on some different zombie things here and there, but in the grand spectrum of TV movies, Walking Dead has been phenomenal and has had all these offshoots. Where do you see the zombie craze going next? Do you think it's going to end? Is it going to sizzle out?
Well, Greg Nicotero, who pretty much was the the genius behind The Walking Dead, just did another spinoff.
Yeah.
It keeps spinning off and spinning off and spinning off. I hope that what happens to the zombie subgenre doesn't happen. The comic book, I think the comic book genre is being so overdone, way overdone. I just hope it doesn't kill it.
Yeah.
But ironically, it's a zombie genre. It never dies. It just keeps going. And I think, since I'm a member of the Romero family, I have a complete disdain for fast zombies. George hated them. I hate them. We all hate them. That was the next sort of, how can we change it? We'll make them hyenas,
Yeah.
and I don't think it worked for me personally, but they'll just think different ways to where they can put zombies. It'll keep going. I think it'll be around.
I think there's a real it's anytime like there's a big boom in any particular horror thing, it's sort of a cultural response,
For sure.
and you're looking at hope. All those movies are somewhat hopeless. You see the relationships of these people, and they're just trying to survive. But what does that tell you about where our culture is? Like, yeah, you're going back to survival movies. You're going back to these apocalyptic, dystopian futures. So I think that people need something to kind of just blow out that tension. And you watch a zombie movie, and it's scary, and it's gory, and it's entertaining, and you see these survival stories. So I think as long as people are feeling worried, I think as long as people are feeling like the future's not as bright and predictable as they had hoped it was, there's always going to be some sort of tendency, and maybe it won't always be zombies. Maybe they'll find some other element, but zombies are pretty good, sort of analogy to your fears.
Yeah.
It's I feel like I'm alone out here. I feel like I'm just trying to scratch and get by, and everybody out there's literally trying to eat me. They're going to kill me and eat me. So I think that metaphor is effective, and so people will keep doing them because people will still feel like that's a way to, I don't know, kind of express their fears and tension.
And with remakes, you've experienced remakes. I would need to look. You're in sequels and a Predator 2, right?
Every sequel. God, I am the king of sequels. I have nothing original in my work.
with like the craze around remakes and reboots and things like that, do you feel that there are times where that's okay? There's movies that need that.
Go for it.
I think one case where a sequel was really well done was Savini's Night 90. I think Night of the Living Dead 90 was great. I really think that was really good. Where and Dawn of the Dead remake, the 2010 version, was good. It was a good film, but it really didn't do justice to the original. The characters really didn't like each other very much, and I think what we lost in the remake of Dawn of the Dead was that human element that it's us against them, and then there's another them that we're against, and we lost that in the remake. So I think remakes have to be careful to stay true to the original message.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to be the exact same movie. I don't think that's necessary. But there are certain movies that should never be remade. They just, and I don't know how we determine which ones are which. But I just think there's, in the horror genre, it's hard to remake the movies. Although, look at how many different Dracula movies there were.
Right.
How many different Draculas there were. It worked. It just worked because they made it as different movies. It wasn't the same movie over and over.
Change the time period.
They changed
Right.
the time period. They changed, the location where they were. I think that's cool. I say, okay, take the original idea, modify it to something completely new, and remake it as a new movie.
Right.
Extension of it,
Yeah.
not a remake.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I think that's important.
we talked a lot about just between Marty and I about remakes, and a lot of people were asking about it, and sequels, prequels, reboots. It's like, why would you remake Nightmare on Elm Street? Are you going to do it better? Are you going to do it where you're going to scare people as effectively as that? It didn't need to be remade. I know a lot of folks, there are folks that liked it, and I don't disagree with them. It's just that it's an easy cash cow. You see if you can make money if you say Of the Dead in it. You can make money if you say Nightmare on Elm Street, no matter what you're going to do with it. Freddy versus Jason, this, that. You're just using characters because it's an easy buck. And if you're not going to work on the script and really make it something interesting, it's just slashing teenagers and writing characters so you can dispatch them.
Right. And if you look at the history of film, remakes have been part of the history of film since the beginning.
Star is Born.
Yeah, Star is Born.
Yeah.
4 of those, 5 of those. You look at Nosferatu, and you look at how many silent movies were remade into talking movies, were then remade into color movies, then remade into modern or musicals. So it is part of the history of the industry,
Right.
that remakes happen, and it's exactly what Bill said. Because it's familiar, people will go back and see it automatically. So you automatically know you're going to have box office. If you remake this movie, it will pay the bills for a couple of months. So there is a business decision made there. The horror genre is 22% at this time. The horror genre is 22% of the market, and that's huge. That is huge. So if they remake popular horror movies, they know they've got 22% of the market, and they know that they'll get those people that are nostalgic for the original.
Right.
They're going to come back and see it. So it's usually just a business decision.
And that's an excellent point. Like yesterday during one of the panels, Marlon brought that up when he was talking to the women of horror, and he said, what about the attention it brings back to the original? And I think that's a very important piece to consider is when someone sees these new ones, you have two options. I hated it. I'll never look at it again. I didn't like it, but now I want to understand where it came from.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe add something to the canon.
Yeah.
Is it
Right.
I asked Wes Craven. I got to work for Wes on a few films, but then I also became his web developer. Just luck of the draw. I was very fortunate. And I said, I won't say the other words. I said, when is Freddy gonna die? And he said, when Freddy stops making money. And he said that, and he was like, yeah, I'm so sick of them making Nightmare, the Final Beginning, whatever it is. And then he went out and made, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It's like, you whore. You got a boat payment, Wes? What's going on? But he also, I'm making fun of that. But he actually was kind of tired of the Nightmare sequels, and he's like, they stopped being scary. They started being funny.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to bring Freddy back to where Freddy was when he scared the living crap out of me when we did it the first time. And so when he brought New Nightmare, he brought it into the present day. He brought it into the real world, with the actual actors playing themselves, not playing the actors and actresses, or the characters that they did before. So he was really looking for a way to not reboot Freddy, but just kind of erase what he saw as the formulaic nonsense that happens. And I'm not saying that the Nightmare films weren't good. Please watch them, and I need the money. So, but I think he was kind of looking at that as, yeah, but if you're gonna bring him back bigger, better, scarier. Don't give him so many taglines. Don't do that. And that's true with Jason. Jason in space, for F's sake, come on. It's an excuse, and they're trying to find a way. And one of the things you learn about the movie business is that you can sell the foreign rights before you even make the movie, and you can sell the foreign rights for enough that you can afford to make the movie. So a lot of times they say, hey, I got Wes Craven's name, and I'm gonna make something with Freddy. Bam! You got enough money to make your movie. You don't even have to have a script yet. And then you can, go and make your movie and know you'll make enough to make something. So I think that's when it's a business decision and not a, look, I want to scare you again. Wes loved to scare an audience. Just used to giggle like a little, 5-year-old kid, just loved to do a good scare. And when Freddy stopped being scary and Jason stopped being scary and everybody stopped being scary, it was just kind of like, no, don't remake it, don't reboot it unless you're gonna put the balls back in it. I want to see something that's going to frighten me. I want to see something that's going to shock me. Do something. Bring these people back only if necessary. And I just think so much of the time it's just not necessary.
And I'm gonna bounce off something you said, and I'm gonna see if you guys have any questions. I want to make sure we get any questions from you that you have. So start thinking. Do you think that society's changed to a point where it's harder to scare us, more so than the movies aren't as scary as they used to be?
Great question.
What are we missing?
I do think that audiences and people in general are getting desensitized to horror. And I think part of it is it's so easy to, I lay in bed at night and watch movies on my phone. It's also accessible that we see it so much that, it's not, my kids laugh when they watch The Exorcist. The Exorcist scared the heck out of me.
Yeah.
I still scares me, but my children think it's funny. They think it's a comedy. So I just think people's concept of fear has changed. And I do think that, and I'm happy that this kind of changed back. We went through a period of time in the horror genre where it was gore. It was kill, 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 blood, kill, blood, 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 blood. And by the end of the movie, you were so desensitized to it that it wasn't a horror movie anymore.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. And we've gotten back to character-driven horror films, which is what it is, because nothing is scarier to me than another human being that's off the rails, right? So we're getting back into that. And I think we're getting back into psychological horror, we're getting back into psychological terror, and I think that is really what needs to happen.
Brett said something to me one time about how the things that scared you when you were 9 years old still scare you, but you've learned to deal with it.
Yeah.
So Wes will write a script that says, yeah, well, I'm going to take away your ability to deal with it. I'm going to put this guy in your dreams. You have to sleep. You go crazy. You die if you go too long without sleep. So you must. Now, when you go to sleep, I'm going to mess with you. I'm going to do something. I can actually kill you even in your sleep. So all the really best scares, I truly think that the same things that scare you when you're 9 years old scare you when you're older. But trying to access that, I would say, I don't know if there's I think the desensitization is not to horrors, in my opinion, it's to violence. Seeing somebody get their head chopped off is a giggle, which is not so much a giggle if you've actually, if you've seen that. But I think now the special effects and everything just can make it so easy to do that. So I think the thing that we got to get back to in horror is fear for the sake of another person. You're saying, if you don't care about the characters, why would you care if they die? So if you're just creating characters to kill them, it gets dull. But if you have somebody that you're like, if you're watching Walking Dead, I love that show. I care about those characters. I want nothing bad to happen to certain characters, and I want something really bad to happen to other characters because I've latched onto them. Love them, hate them. I have an interest in their welfare, good or bad. And that's why I think that show works so well, because they've created characters that matter to you, that are complex, that are not all good, they're not all bad. But the enemy is pretty much all bad.
And that's an amazing point, because there are times where I'll say, like, I'm tired of Walking Dead. But then something will happen to one of the characters that I care about. I'm like, no, I'm not. Don't let it happen.
Yeah, no, not here.
Nothing can happen to Daryl. Leave him know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you find yourself screaming at the TV, you care about
Exactly. Exactly.
So I do go see about over 150 films a year for about the last 5 years. For horror, I do see people actually walking out of horror for some of the films, but it's got to be usually when they walk out is for medical scenes where people can actually feel like they're seeing something. I've seen Eyes Without a Face from the French film from the 1960s, when that guy's trying to cut off a person's for their mask or whatever. Half the audience gets up and walks out of that film. In there. But I do have a question here, since you're both stunt performers, and then.
Well, he's more than
I was.
He ended up in there. I actually pursued it.
Okay. How How soon do you think it'll be before the Academy Awards actually gives you your own category?
Excellent question.
Because you do deserve it.
That is so painful to ask that question. You know, they did this, I don't know if you guys watched last year. They did this big thing, and I saw a lot of guys I knew, and they said, we just want to give credit where credit's due. Did they create a category? No. They gave a nice little shout out, lip service BS. You know, I know so many people, I mean, I've got friends that a 40-story high fall on fire after going through glass. Okay, this is, well, maybe not 40 stories, let's call it 10. Still, you know, you're going to die either way, it's just going to take longer. And they do these incredible things that are the spectacle that you see in the trailer. It's the spectacle that you see in the James Bond movies. It's the spectacle that really drives the people into the theaters. And they're like, I mean, I have to say, I've been treated as a crew member instead of a cast member. And it's like, you know, sorry guys, the scene that you thought was so freaking cool, the kill that scarred you for life and you just remember it and you look forward to it in the film, that was me, not him. And I'm a cast member. That's just what it is. We're Screen Actors Guild members. We do the same. We get residuals just like they do. So when somebody kind of treats you like it's not that big a deal, and the union, not the union, the Academy has never treated us with anything other than, hey, good for you. You know, but there's some lifetime achievement awards that have been given out, maybe 2. Everything else has just been, yeah, we're going to feature some people here. And I just feel like they're doing it just to make us, you know, calm down and stop asking. But, you know, they're not going to go back and fix my work, you know, and make like, you know, but I do see some amazing work. Although I have to say too, it's safer to do stunts now. You can put wires and then remove them, you know, so a lot of practical stunts have really not been as dangerous. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's different now. They can CGI as cheaply as they can put you on wires. If they really want to get the actor, they put a stunt guy in, they put some dots on his face, and then they put Robert Downey Jr. on.
And I think that's the problem in getting an award for stunts, is that you can do mocap animation. You know, you can do mocap, you can do green screen and blue screen and paint things in and paint things out and make it look amazing. And then you have the actual stunt guy that's still falling from that 10 feet, you know, 10-story building into an airbag through glass on fire, you know, and that is a legitimate stunt. And I think that, you know, we have to call it, you know, something that is CGI'd or something that is mocapped. We shouldn't be calling that a stunt. It's an effect. It's an effect versus a stunt. And I think once that we get to that point where we can break it up, and remember, we're still, even though the industry is 100 and whatever years old, there's still the mentality of, well, we don't want the audiences to think about the actor not doing their own fall or their actor not jumping off the horse, or, you know, we want to maintain that illusion that the actors are doing the work. And I think once we get beyond that, and I think we're close, actually, I do. Yeah. I think that once we categorize it as real stunts versus effects, I think we'll get to that point within the next, I don't know, 5 years or so.
And there's a lot of talk about Tom Cruise and the stunts that he's done lately. Okay, some badass stuff, no 2 ways about it. There's a great story they talk about where he wanted to do a particular stunt, and he was telling Matt Damon the story. Matt says, how did you get to do that stunt? He says, well, I went to the safety guy. Safety guy said, no effing way, you're never going to do that. So I talked to the new safety guy, and he said I could do it. You know, he just got rid of anybody that said he wasn't allowed to do it. And he does some amazing stuff, but there's safety there that you don't see. He's not really hanging out of a plane. He's got a very thick cable holding him on. But would I do it? Yeah, sure I would. Would they ever allow that actor to do it? Jackie Chan did some crap that will put hair on your chest. And he got hurt all the time and did all that stuff faux real. I mean, very little safety on his stuff. It was Chinese-made stuff, and they just didn't have the same rules. So there are some stunt people out there who really do deserve those awards, and some of them I know. Some of these guys are friends of mine that are still working at it and still coordinating and putting these things together. I really wish they would, but it's so late in the game to kind of say, yeah, we're going to put out a category for this now. And it's like, well, thanks. Yeah, only about 60 years too late. You know, so many people put their butts on the line in the name of film to you know, give you that spectacle, give you that heart pounding thing. And they were really doing that stunt, you know. So you can't go back and help those and recognize those guys in any meaningful way with an Academy Award. But you know, there's still people out there busting butt, doing these things and putting their, you know, selves in serious peril. And yeah, I would like to see it done. But again, I think about how many people I know that, you know, lived and died this thing to try to really make a film spectacular, and they'll never get the recognition they really deserve.
So both of you are obviously veterans in the industry, and we've talked about Walking Dead various times. Obviously, television has had a huge boom with horror, with, you know, Chucky having his own series, and we're seeing a lot of more like legacy series that are coming on. Do you guys think that that is necessarily a good thing, that we're expanding into that media and that we're bringing characters like these beloved icons into there? And where would you like to see that go?
I do think it's a good thing. However, also from a business perspective, is Shudder struggles. You know, Shudder, which is a network dedicated to horror, it struggles for subscribers and to survive. And so I would love to see it. And maybe it's Shudder that needs to think about their programming and needs to think about what they're doing. But for the most part, I think I don't know what it is. It just doesn't get to the point on television that it should. I would love to see it do more, because I think there would just be more work for everybody. I would like to see it.
And I think, you know, the way people watch movies nowadays is so fragmented. You can have these little niches, and those little niches can do very, very well if they're well done. So it's hard for anybody to make something that is going to cater to the audience they want to do. That they can do it, but are they going to get enough subscribers? Are they going to get enough people to watch that movie? I know a lot of guys doing really, really low budget independent horror, and it's fun. You know, I mean, there's a guy doing Amityville Barbie here. I think he's actually here in Ohio, and there's people doing you know, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and these things. And whether they're good or bad sort of doesn't matter to me in a way. Sometimes, I mean, you guys know the worst horror film you ever saw, you've watched 12 times, because it gets so bad that it's good again. It's fun, you know, to watch. So as long as people are working, as long as there are people out there enjoying it, I think get as many things going. I mean, you can make films really inexpensively anymore. It's not that expensive to make a reasonable film. And so I hope people out there keep making them, because you want to see more content out there. I hope they put the time in to make it good. But yeah, I think it's tough. Like you're saying, it's tough to gain a real audience for like a single channel, but there's a lot of really interesting films being made and going straight to Amazon, just because Amazon says, well, put it here, we'll give you a share if we make anything. Go for it. Swing for the deep seats. Yeah.
So Marty, I have a 10-story building. I have gasoline. I have a window that needs broken. I have a path about 3-4 inches thick, and I have $25.
Yes, I will.
All right. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to thank all of you for stopping by. Anybody who's watching, thank you so much. I want to make sure you guys a chance to say where they can find you. I actually just added you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Adulting.
Yes.
I know you have your socials, so let's plug them. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can follow you, stalk you professionally.
I'm all over social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, if you want to be on a professional level.
If I want to be on an unprofessional.
Well, then I would say just give me a call, because you have my number. Just text me.
Very unprofessional.
Yeah, just find me. I'm out there.
I'm on I'm on Instagram at webscraven, like Wes Craven, but with a B in there somewhere. And then I've got a website, William R. Perry Stunts, where any projects that are going on, you know, I just try to share that stuff. or if somebody just wants to ask a question about some, film that I was in that they just had a burning question they've never been able to ask, I'm pretty available.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna turn this off and then, if you don't mind, I'd like to get a picture with you. That's okay. Yes.
Yeah, that would be great. Great job.
Oh, actually, no, Martin can get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Picture for him. We'll go